I truly paint from my memory and my creative eye, so that when I start a composition, I've got my canvas and I have these chalk markers, and I may put 5, 6 lines on there. And that's all I do for my composition. And then I start with a brush. I like to get that first basic layer of paint in there so that I can see that composition and edit as needed. So this is still pretty much of a left-sided, in some ways, approach. And then when I pull out the palette knives, anything goes. You play. You play with layers, you play with textures, you play with color and values, all those things that really make a painting unique. And because you're being playful in that process, I think that's when the passion comes out. That's when you expose your soul to the viewer of that piece of art. And when that person takes that art home to be part of their life, I always feel like, well, this is my child. They've gone to a good place out there, they've found their own life, and they're doing great. But it's just a really interesting process, and I think you have to have a balance between somewhat left-sided, but you have to have that right side, and you have to be comfortable with the ability to let that just come out so that people can see that and share that. I think the longer I've painted, the more impressionistic they've become, and I love that layering where things just happen. And on a big canvas, it's in some ways easier, in a lot of ways it's easier, but because you can have things just sort of dry a little bit with the acrylic paints. And kind of my favorite part of the painting sometimes is when that paint is to that sticky citrus kind of stage where you have a little bit of a skin on it, so it's not going to move, and you just lightly take that palette knife and pull it across that canvas, and things just hit and miss. And it's that willingness to allow that to just happen. And sometimes you go back in and you edit it a little bit, but a lot of times that first piece of the palette knife going across is perfect. And I think it's important for me anyway to paint for hours on a piece and then keep it into that passion, sharing, a little bit of editing as you go, but then stand back. And if you stand back and look at it too often, then you get too critical of it. But if you've put yourself out there on that canvas, then suddenly you have this amazing painting that's yours. It's my impression of that visual and how it's going to react to the other things within that framework around it.
And does that change as you're painting?
I think it can. I think it very definitely can. I've always said that a painting, even back when I was doing my watercolor, starts out as a beautiful brand new baby. Yeah. And that baby is so precious and so perfect, and you just adore that child more than anything. But you're there, you're coddling it, you're taking care of it, and then suddenly that baby has the terrible twos. So, okay, a little bit of a problem, but I'm patient. I love this child. I'm going to keep working on it. And I do the same thing with the painting. And then suddenly 2 becomes 3 and 4 and all of those amazing fun ages with kids. And you're like, oh, I got this made. I'm on a roll now. And then I don't care what painting it is or probably what kid it is, they become a teenager.
They become a teenager, right.
And that teenage angst and that I'm going to do it my way, whatever, is there in the painting also. And I think that conversation with your kids, obviously, but also having that conversation with your painting, which sounds a little weird, but it's kind of what I believe in, because I'm listening to what the painting's trying to tell me, as well as to guide that painting to some degree. So we come to a meeting of the minds.
You see the painting as alive.
I do.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but I guess I do.
Feeling, right.
Yeah, it's a living, breathing entity.
Right.
And I want it to have the opportunity to be who it needs to be. And I've gone and I've sat on that bench and just immersed myself into that painting.